When EA's Battlefront 2 came out back in 2017, it launched with a single-player campaign and an additional lackluster offline mode. While the single-player grew in size with different maps and modes, players were still left wanting to play the game's flagship mode, Galactic Assault, offline and single-player. For years and years after the game stopped receiving official support from EA, modders attempted to bring Galactic Assault to single-player with no success, until March of 2024. Galactic Assault, the main game mode for multiplayer, has finally been ported over to offline single-player thanks to some modders. This is a playable version against bots in which the AI actually plays the objective. Now, it's not perfect by any means. Some maps work better than others, but nonetheless, it's our first time having this game mode playable offline against bots. I'm going to be talking about it overall, and then each map more in detail. For starters, this is a PC mod. Unfortunately, this is not playable for console players. I do recommend building a nice PC though and gaming on it because, oh my god, it has changed my gaming experience. There's just so much you can do with having a game on PC. But before I get sidetracked, let's talk about offline Galactic Assault. So this mod was released this year in March of 2024. It features Galactic Assault on the following maps: Tatooine, Death Star 2, Yavin 4, Endor, Hoth, Geonosis, Kashyyyk, Naboo, Kamino, Takodonna, and Starkiller base. You mostly get the immersiveness that comes with Galactic Assault, all the cool intros and outros, the environmental storytelling that the other game modes lack, AI that plays the objectives, the ability to play the objectives yourself, and the ability to have an epic experience. The AI is limited to the 4 base trooper classes, the Assault, Heavy, Officer, and Specialist, so unfortunately you won't be seeing AI-controlled heroes or vehicles. However, the aerial battles from Galactic Assault are still present. On maps like Takodonna and Starkiller base, you'll be able to watch starfighters fight it out as you take to the skies yourself and participate in these battles. Each map and the way it plays is unique, as the AI isn't quite perfect. Depending if you're playing as the attacking or defending faction will determine your experience. The out of bounds limiter has been removed, so you're free to go wherever you want. However, I do recommend downloading a mod that gets rid of the grayscale and effects, as those are still present when you go out of bounds. You just won't die when the timer hits 0. So yeah, let's talk about how each map plays. You play as the Empire as the attacking team on Tatooine. The AI is able to play the objectives very well since it's similar to missions Attack and Defend and Supremacy, in which the AI just needs to stand on a designated area and defend it until the meter fills up. The second phase is where things can get a little rough though. Since you have to capture both objective points in order to progress, the AI will focus all their attention to the control point that hasn't been captured yet, meaning you'll have an entire war in either the junkyard or bazaar. The spawn points for the rebels is really close to the control point, so this phase pretty much becomes a fight against rebel hordes. I wasn't able to move on from this phase till I got the AT-ST out to cover lots of ground. This took so long to do, but I actually had a lot of fun with it when we finally went into overtime. Defending Tatooine as the rebels will have this game mode go on for centuries. It's like taking on endless waves of troopers. The first 2 objectives will constantly get contested by both factions, and because of the spawn points, there will always be someone from both factions contesting the objective areas. At first, I didn't think there was a way to let the Empire push the rebels back on this map, but after a few rounds of trying, I got the Empire to push us back into the second phase. A similar thing almost happened on the second phase, in which the objectives were contested infinitely. But the spawn point for the Empire I think might not be in the most optimal spot, as when my team cleared enemies off a control point, it took a little longer for the Empire to reach and contest said control point again. I do really love that you can explore this map in the first phase if you so choose, because the game will constantly go into overtime. This one's pretty neat. For the Death Star, the rebels crash into it and must shut down its weapons and escape on an Imperial shuttle. This one's a lot of fun and works the best in my opinion, as the AI is able to activate switches and therefore can play the objectives. The map is well spread out, so you won't really have hordes of enemies or friendly AI hoard over a single objective point, usually, which can cause slow to no progression at all on other maps. The AI plays the objective pretty well in all 3 phases. It's great not having to worry about my team playing since they'll be activating switches as well. What makes this game mode a lot of fun for offline is the immersion the game delivers when completing an objective as the rebels. Unlike in Missions Attack and Missions Defend, disabling the Death Star's cannons and main laser actually shut them down. For example, you can see these cannons disabled from the window after you complete the objective, and the Death Star's main laser stops firing after you manage to switch it off. Also, when activating the switch for the Imperial shuttle to escape on, you can see the shuttle being brought up with your progress, making things feel all the more real. It's environmental storytelling at its finest. To make things even better, you get this awesome cutscene of the Death Star exploding as your team makes it out alive if you manage to complete all the objectives, which of course feels incredibly satisfying. Unfortunately, in the other offline game modes, taking control of a command post does not affect the environment in any way, which is why I really dig Galactic Assault for the Death Star. I mean, you really can't beat this kind of opening to a level anyways. Defending as the Empire on the Death Star is pretty easy. The AI plays as you would expect and hope, but it can be a bit easy. The opposing team plays the objective fairly well, but if you're a skilled player, then the rebels don't really stand a chance. I think because the spawn points on the Death Star is what makes defending pretty easy. The rebels have a decent way to travel to get to any of the switch objectives, whereas the Empire spawns pretty much near the objectives, making defending them pretty easy. It is a lot of fun having showdowns in the reactor room with the platforms though. It kinda gives me nostalgia for Battlefront 2015 and the Death Star on that map. For Yavin 4, as the Empire, your goal is to infiltrate the rebel base and steal vital information that will help the Empire turn the tide of war. The opening scene does a great job introducing the player to the map and objectives at hand as we see Imperial shuttles taking off and Imperials preparing for their attack. The AI is exceptional here, but your team probably won't get very far in pushing the objective unless you help. They'll activate objectives in all the phases and defend control points, but the rebels can sometimes overwhelm your team, especially when the focus comes down to a single objective point. I recommend planting the bombs on all the turrets in the first phase right away so that your team has a fair advantage with or without you in the following phases. To be honest, it's not much different than Missions Attack and Defend, other than the battle happening in the sky. The key difference in this game mode for offline, minus the alive environment, is the final phase. Here your team will go into the briefing room and control room of the rebel base, which feels satisfying having started outside far away from the base. When the doors lower, your team can go in and steal the rebel intel, which makes it feel different than Missions Attack and Defend. I would say my main gripe with this one is the lack of ATSTs that sometimes help storm the command posts in Missions Attack and Defend. It would be awesome to see chicken walkers assist you in keeping the rebels back at their base as you attempt to override the doors. Now, defending the base on Yavin 4 as the rebels can be a hit or miss. To get the most playability out of this map with this faction, you kinda have to be hands-off as the rebels, at least for the first phase. You'll probably have no issues winning the first phase if you're actually playing. I tried seeing how far the Empire could get without interference, and unfortunately it was about the second phase where both teams come to a standoff and the rebels usually end up winning by defending the control points. I don't think the Empire has a close enough spawn point to keep up with the rebels in the second phase, making it difficult for the Empire to push on the next phase. I'm sure it's possible, but I didn't spend enough time trying it out. You do get some fun playability out of this though, and I spent my time waiting for the Empire to push the objective by shooting at starfighters in the sky as Leia, which by the way, I didn't know her secondary shot tracks starfighters. It's also really cool wandering around inside the base, watching the engineers work on the starfighters as this epic battle commences just outside the base's walls. It makes things feel urgent, and I wish this environmental storytelling also made its way into offline Missions Attack and Defend. So Endor is an interesting map. At first, I didn't think this one worked, but boy was I wrong. Endor has quickly become one of my favorite maps actually. In the beginning, the AI doesn't spawn right away. I'm not sure if it takes a moment for the AI to spawn in or if you have to start playing the objective first, but when I started playing the objective, the AI spawned in on both teams, and that's when things really ramped up. Unfortunately, the Rebel AI can't activate objective switches on this map, but they do follow and defend the walker once you, the player, activates the AT-AT. The Empire will attack you sometimes when trying to activate the objective on the first phase. In fact, the AI on both sides will go into this whole battle against each other. Even though the rebels don't play the objective and mainly contest each other on one side of the walker, it still feels immersive since you can slip out from the firefight and activate the objectives yourself, which will progress the battle all the way to the end of the stage, where the AI will play the rest of the objective and storm the Empire base and take control over the final control point. It feels like something out of the movies, and the fact that there is an AT-AT walker shooting at the Empire makes it feel a lot different than missions attack and defend in instant action. While the Empire won't attack the walker, assisting it with your fellow AI bots feels pretty immersive. Now, playing as the Empire on this map, the best way I would describe it is if you played arcade mode in single player, the map for Endor is the area where the first phase of Galactic Assault takes place. And unfortunately, since the Rebel AI can't activate switches on this map, you'll basically be playing a shittier version of arcade since the AI in this game mode is buggy on this part of the map. The Rebel AI can only stay within certain areas, which isn't even the full map that's presented in arcade, making the playable space in Galactic Assault as the Empire pretty limited. You'll definitely just want to play as the Rebels since you'll see all of the map from beginning to end, and the AI actually works, minus shooting the walker. Hoth unfortunately has no working AI players, not even in the sky. Only the AT-ATs function, and apparently they shoot at any living thing, like Tauntauns. You can play as the Empire and play the objective by yourself and explore the map a little, but it's kinda boring. There's like one area in Galactic Assault that isn't playable in missions attack and defend, and exploring it is as much excitement as you're gonna get on this map, which is okay since I think I'm a little Hothed out since Battlefront 2015. On Naboo, the Separatists launch an attack on the palace. Your job is to defend the MTT as it makes its way to the palace to blast open an entrance in order to seize it. You know, I'm surprised the AI mostly works here. At first, I didn't expect to see any AI at all, so I spent a few rounds exploring the out-of-bounds areas of the map, following these random dirt roads and seeing where they all go. I have to give the developers credit on this because despite how far out of bounds these paths are, they're still well constructed and even go past these little settlements outside the city borders. It was actually really cool exploring outside of the map, and maybe I'll make a video in the future doing something like this. I don't know, let me know if you'd like to see something like that for the channel. Anyway, there is AI working on this map, and they do play the objective, at least to the point where this map is playable and fun. The modder for this mod made it so the player and the AI don't die when going out of bounds. So for the first phase, the Separatists book their way to the palace, and for pretty much the first phase, you'll be shooting in the streets against clothes as the MTT automatically makes its way to the palace. While the clones don't play the objective in the first phase, you will be fighting against the AI, which gives you something to do until the next phase. To be perfectly honest, I think it is perfectly fine and it's actually a lot of fun. I think the fun of this map actually comes from the AI not playing the objective, because you get this ever-progressing phase with AI to shoot at until you made it to the second phase, in which your team infiltrates the palace. Now this is where the droid AI is a little buggy as they get stuck in weird areas, but they do play the objective by activating the switches that open the door to the final phase. It's really awesome storming the palace, but you will have to help your team. Unfortunately, your team will not storm the final command point in the last phase of this map, so it'll be up to you, which does get challenging as the enemy team will direct their attention to you. Things can get chaotic, and I found myself having to play as heroes to beat this part. The AI will quickly overwhelm you the more your meter progresses on this part. Plus, I believe the spawn points change for your team, which makes losing reinforcements easy, and the enemy team will wreck their shit. But I mean, you can still play and beat Galactic Assault on this map. It's functional and can be a lot of fun. Defending as the clone troopers is also pretty fun on this map, as the Separatists do take to the streets in the first phase. While your team won't play the objective, you can attempt to pick up the ion disruptors and try to take out the MTT for yourself. And it will feel like you're playing multiplayer because the enemy team is always shooting at you, and so is the MTT if you get in its line of sight. I would love to see a video of someone taking this thing out in offline single player by themselves if anyone actually manages to do it. I think it can be done, but I imagine it'll require a lot of patience and persistence. Either way, the enemy team can storm the palace, but because of the unfinished AI, they don't play the objective as efficient since the bots get stuck in this area. They can activate switches, but usually they're outnumbered because of this, making pushing the objective very difficult. You'll definitely have an easy time crushing the droids on this second phase, but I do think it's possible for them to push you back into the final phase if you give them enough room and get lucky. On Kamino, you play as the Separatist as you attack a clone facility with the full intent on destroying it. The first phase of this map as the droids is kinda difficult, since you're battling over a singular objective. All the AI from both teams congest in this room, which can be hard for your team to push the objective. I found being quick to the objective helps your team push it. Actually, I think it's the only way. The second phase has your team taking control of the landing pads, which the AI players do exceptionally well. It's the remaining two phases that the player team just can't seem to get down. After the second phase, the player team has a difficult time playing the objective, and the only real way to win at this point is to go solo. I would say this is a shame, but to be honest, the areas in which you play and fight over objectives is mostly the same as missions attack and defend, so you're not really missing much here. Now, defending as the clones is extremely one-sided, as it'll be a miracle if you ever get pushed back from phase 1. At least this was my experience playing as the Republic on Kamino. There's not much to say here about this one, unfortunately. Now, playing as the Republic on Geonosis is a different story though. The clones have to call in reinforcements to drop in ATTE walkers to destroy the Separatist transports. This is another map where the AI doesn't spawn in right away, but they do play and push the first objective. In fact, if you can get past the first phase as the Republic, you can play out the rest of Galactic Assault on this map. However, it will take some time. In the following phases, the player has to operate an extremely slow-moving ATTE and use it to destroy the objectives. The major setback here is that you can only control the tanks and therefore only you can play the objective. The AI will create an awesome war zone for you in the sands of Geonosis though, but completing the actual objective is gonna take quite some time. Once you manage to get past the second phase, the final phase has you walk one of these things to a command point, and the only way to capture it is to have the ATTE on the command point itself. Now, I think this part is actually really cool because these things in the background will shoot at you on their own if you come into close proximity with them and actually pose a threat. Luckily, shooting at them will destroy them, so there is a bit of challenge and fun to be had here. I did enjoy my time with this map, especially when the sandstorm picks up and visibility is limited. It really has the immersion of the Clone Wars. It feels like something out of the movies. As long as you don't mind the amount of time it'll take to beat this map, there is fun to be had here. Now, defending as the droids, while playable, is easily the most tedious to do on this map. First off, the enemy team isn't great at pushing the objective in the first phase. I played this map about 5 times trying to get the Republic to push us back into the second phase, but with a little bit of luck and patience, it's very possible to do. Unfortunately, the AI can't push past the second phase, as that would require them to operate the ATTEs to shoot down the transport, which they aren't programmed to do. So in order to win as the droids, you have to painstakingly hop in an AAT and destroy each and every tank. It takes so long to do, but it is possible to win as the Separatist in this phase. If you don't play the objective, you'll just have an infinite war taking place, which I guess is still pretty awesome in and of itself. The Separatists storm the beaches of Kashyyyk to push back the Republic to the Venator ship in hopes of trapping them on the planet with nowhere to run. Unfortunately, here on Kashyyyk, the AI does not work on this map. For the Separatists, your team remains stationary at the beach for the entire round. The enemy team spawns where they're supposed to, but they have no pathing and also remain stationary. You can shoot at them and they'll fire back, but that's as much interaction as you're gonna have here. There is a sky battle you can participate in, but it seems kinda pointless in my opinion. It's much more fun trying to fly through the Venator as a starfighter though. The same thing goes for Starkiller base. Again, unfortunately the AI doesn't work here, but they do appear on the map, but they can't play the objective, nor can they move from their starting area. As the First Order, you can go to where the rebels start off at and have a firefight with them, but they can't move outside of trying to roll to dodge your projectiles. You can win with either faction by playing the objectives by yourself as the Resistance, or by depleting all of the tickets as the First Order. To be honest, it's just not really that fun. Just stick with missions attack and defend. The only real difference here is that there's starfighters in the sky that you can interact with. That's really about it. However, in Takodonna, you play as the First Order on a mission to seize Maz's castle. This map is hard, especially on the first phase. The Resistance has spawn points that are close to the first objective, and unfortunately not all the AI on your team work properly, so you'll have troopers missing in battle. In order to win this as the First Order, you have to go hard. The Resistance, I believe, has all their AI working, so they'll deplete your tickets pretty quickly unless you can advance quickly. Storming the castle with your team also isn't happening. It's something you'll have to do solo. I don't think the First Order has pathing programmed for the castle, so you'll often see them in various areas outside of it. Not to mention that the Resistance has all their team members, so they'll have the castle pretty well covered from every side. You'll have to play as a hero and do a solo mission in order to win. It's kind of a shame that the Resistance deplete your tickets quickly, because you can take to the skies and fight enemy starfighters around the castle, which makes it feel like a reimagining of The Force Awakens. This is a map I'd love to see rebalanced for offline, since I think there's a lot of immersion to be had here. It's just unfortunately short-lived at the moment. Now, defending as the Resistance will have the game mode over just as fast as it started. Again, the AI for the First Order is buggy, and therefore they don't have all their players, so your team will quickly wipe out the mini squads of 2 to 4 troopers trying to play the objective. It's difficult to allow the enemy team to push the objective since your team pretty much is ruthless on this map. This map is definitely for the other faction to attack as the First Order, and for a player who wants a challenge. I would say this map is definitely designed for attacking as the First Order, and for a player who wants a challenge. But yeah, that's the first playable iteration of Galactic Assault for offline. As I said in the beginning, it's not perfect, but it is playable to some regard. Personally, I love it so far. And while it needs some tweaking, you have to remember that Galactic Assault was never intended to be playable offline in single player. So the fact that we have something even remotely playable is a massive W in my book. I want to give a huge shout out to BTech Map, Mophead, Y-Wing Pilot 02, and Cade for making this all possible. I would love to give them money to work on this more, as you should too if you want to see something like this more polished. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please comment and subscribe if you want to see more Battlefront or Star Wars game videos in the future, and I'll do my best to make it happen. You guys enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.